I don't know if it was just me, but it seemed like that college football kind of sucked this past weekend. It just seemed like blowout Saturday. Not very many interesting games. Felt like there was a lot of blowouts. Alabama winning convincingly, Clemson winning convincingly, LSU winning pretty convincingly, Oklahoma winning pretty convincingly, Michigan somewhat winning convincingly. They really dominated the whole course of the game. Except, it just seemed like Michigan could have won by a whole lot more. But Michigan State's defense did keep them in the game. But the only really interesting thing that happened this week, but it's a huge impact on the college football playoff race, was Purdue upsetting number 2 Ohio State. Not only did they upset them, but they just really beat them up. They really took it to them. They dominated on all sides of the football from start to finish. I don't think that gashes Ohio State's playoff chances, but I think it makes them pretty difficult. I still think Ohio State is one of those teams that controls their own destiny. They just need either Alabama, Clemson, or Notre Dame to lose one game. 2 out of 3 would be great, but I think they need at least one to start. Probably Notre Dame, because even if Alabama or Clemson ended up losing one game, but still wound up to win the conference championship, I think they would get in over Ohio State. Whether or not Ohio State wins the Big Ten or not. Because if Ohio State win the Big Ten, then they have a good shot to get in. But they need Notre Dame to lose one more. In fact, a lot of the teams that are on the outside looking in, like Georgia or Florida, Oklahoma, I think those teams need Notre Dame to lose once. They need a Notre Dame loss, even Michigan, Texas. They need a Notre Dame loss to kind of get back into it. Because if Notre Dame wins out, if they go 12-0, they have the resume to get in the college football playoff. And if they somehow find their way out of it, there's just something really wrong with the system. Maybe there's something wrong with the system already. But the best thing about Week 9 is coming up this next Tuesday, the first college football playoff committee ranking release. I'm planning on doing what I did last year. Doing a top 10, like a top 10 of my own, before we got the committee's top 10 and kind of compared the two things. When I do that top 10, I look at myself as a member of that committee. Where I would put the top 10. And I'm thinking about maybe doing a stream afterward. Like doing a stream, like maybe for about 20 to 5 minutes to a half hour. If I can get someone to do it. Whether if it's going to be Sam McBuckets or if it's going to be Jude, also known as Hi, I'm Jude, host of the Bump and Run. Or even College Football Dojo. Like I'll try to get someone that wants to talk about it, or maybe even global sports commentator. It's maybe someone. And we could probably talk about what to expect from the rankings on Tuesday, even make a top 10 of our own, kind of discuss it for 25 to 30 minutes, we could take some questions. But before even we get to that, or even start discussing that, let's get to the Week 9 college football predictions. Last week, 6-4 overall. That's normally not how that's usually, I know it's okay, but I'm just not happy with that performance. So hopefully week 9 we kind of get back to the winning track. Alright, so I've had a new mentality, pick with no fear, and I hope this kind of shows this week. First matchup, number 2 Clemson versus Florida State. I think Clemson does win this game, but this is a rivalry game, anything can happen. I feel like Florida State is going to play Clemson close, kind of like what they kind of do with Miami. So I think Florida State, if they could score early, even if it's just a field goal, get your crowd into the game. Because Florida State really hasn't had anything to be proud of in the last 2 seasons. So maybe a quick early start here in this game. Get DeAndre Francois going. Kind of get Cam Akers involved early on. Get that running back in the game. Hopefully get your crowd into the game. Force Clemson to play from behind. Force them to respond to adversity. But I think Clemson wins this game, but I think they might have to earn this one. I kind of said that it would be close last week between NC State and Clemson, but Clemson just completely demolished NC State. But I will take Clemson to win this matchup. Next, number 20, Wisconsin versus Northwestern. I think we're going to get a good effort out of Northwestern, but I just feel like the Badgers, I think they still realize that they have a little something to play for. Whether it's a decent bowl game or kind of trying to climb back into maybe the top 15. But I think Wisconsin wins. I just feel like that running game of Wisconsin led by Jonathan Taylor, a Heisman contender. I think he will be the difference maker in this matchup. I feel like we're going to get a pretty good effort for Northwestern, but Northwestern just seems flat sometimes, but other times they can play you tough. And I feel like we're going to get Northwestern to play them tough, but I think the Badgers come out on top at the end. Next, we've got number 18 Iowa versus number 17 Penn State. Iowa, the most underrated team in college football right now. They have flown under the radar, just like they have quite frequently in the last decade. And I think that they are going to give Penn State a challenge, but I think Penn State wins by 7 points here. I don't think it's going to be as dramatic as it was 2 years ago with Penn State winning on the final play on 4th and goal. I don't think it's going to be that dramatic. But I think Iowa will play Penn State tough. I feel like this is the chance for Iowa to prove themselves, to kind of prove themselves who they are to college football. Because we haven't really known anything about Iowa ever since they made that college football playoff run, well, at least Big Ten championship run, where they started off 12-0, but they couldn't get it done against Michigan State, and they got blown out by Christian McCaffrey and Stanford. So we haven't really seen Iowa that much. So this is their opportunity to prove themselves. Well, they did beat Ohio State last year, but that's really not the point, although we haven't really heard much from them. But I think Penn State gets the win. Next, number 21 South Florida versus Houston. Not only are we eyeing the college football playoff race, but we're eyeing the group of 5 race as well, because we have UCF up there. We've got South Florida up there. We had Cincinnati up there, but they lost this weekend at Temple. Even Houston can get back up. They can get in this race with a win here, and I think they will do it. So this could be a 4-horse race, probably even a 2 or 3 horse race at the end of this one when it's all said and done. For a group of 5, in the group of 5, because the highest ranked group of 5 team will get an automatic New Year's 6 bid. So I think this matchup between South Florida and UCF is going to be very interesting at the end of the season. Especially if they can stay undefeated, because that probably will decide which team gets to play in a New Year's 6 game. But I think Houston does win this matchup. I think Houston could climb into this group of 5 race themselves. And I think they're going to do it. I think Houston pulls off the upset. Next, we got number 12 Kentucky versus Missouri. I've been saying for a couple weeks now that Kentucky will eventually get pushed back to reality, back to planet Earth. And I feel like it's going to be this week. Missouri is coming off a big, convincing win over Memphis. I know it's only Memphis, but Memphis was literally this close. Well, maybe if 1 or 2 things go differently in the UCF game, Memphis potentially pulls off the ups against UCF. So Memphis isn't that bad of a team. But I just think Missouri, I think they're a little bit confident after that win against Memphis. And I think they're going to pull off the quote-unquote upset over Kentucky. I just don't know if this would classify as an upset. I know Kentucky's number 12, but Kentucky hasn't looked that strong that much. It seems like ever since they won against Florida, they've kind of gotten... They haven't really played that much competition. They have the one loss at Texas A&M, but Kyle Field's a very tough place to play. So I feel like Kentucky is that underrated team, but I don't feel like they're as underrated as someone like Iowa is. I don't think the SEC is really as much stacked up. I know some people think the SEC is stacked this year, but I don't think it's as stacked up as kind of it usually could be. Whether if it was like maybe 8 or 9 years ago. But I think Kentucky does get pushed back to earth a little bit this week. I still think Kentucky will get a decent bowl game, but I think Missouri will win this game here. I think this is an opportunity for Drew Lock to prove to the NFL scouts the kind of quarterback he is. Next, number 14 Washington State versus number 24 Stanford. I wanted to pick an upset here, but I think Washington State is very confident after that win against Oregon. But they have to go on the road at Stanford. And I think they're going to pull off the win here. I feel like that quarterback play of Gardner Minshew, I think he'll be a difference maker. If that Washington State defense could stack the box against Bryce Love, they can really contain him very well. I think it'll be a long evening for Stanford. And I think it will be. I think Washington State is the Pac-12's last hope. Well, they are the Pac-12's last hope of getting a team in the college football playoff. And I think we will see Washington State survive just this week. I think they are going to kind of be spared this week. I think they're going to stay in the race at least for one more week. Right now, it's survival mode for a lot of teams. Next, number 16, Texas A&M versus Mississippi State. I don't know what to expect out of Mississippi State. One week, they have a 2-game losing streak. The next week, they beat Auburn. Then they play flat against LSU. I don't know what to expect out of this Mississippi State team. So, based on this pattern, I think they're going to beat Texas A&M, which it just feels like Mississippi State has Texas A&M's number throughout the last couple seasons. It's been quite difficult for A&M to play Mississippi State ever since the departure of Johnny Football. And I think Mississippi State gets the win. I feel like Nick Fitzgerald, I think he's going to give the A&M defense problems just like he has for the last couple seasons. Next, we've got number 22 NC State versus Syracuse, and boy did NC State look like hot garbage last week. Completely getting demolished by Clemson. Honestly, I regret actually wanting to see a West Virginia and NC State matchup, because I feel like we would have seen that matchup. I think it could have been a nice game, but after the way NC State played against Clemson, I don't really want to see that matchup anymore. I'm kind of glad we're not seeing that matchup. I'm going to pick Syracuse. I know Syracuse dodged a bullet last week, but Syracuse is a very underrated team as well. Eric Dungey, probably the most underrated quarterback in college football. You don't really hear much about him. He's really good at running the football, very good at passing the football. He can beat you with his arms or his legs. He can beat you with either one. And I think Syracuse will pull off an upset against NC State. So that's another upset pick I've got this week. Next, we got number 3 Notre Dame versus Navy. And I wanted to pick an upset here. I was very close to doing it because I know that Navy has played Notre Dame pretty tough in the past. So the triple option is very tough to stop. If Navy can get a score early, kind of keep Notre Dame a little bit out of it. In fact, it wouldn't surprise if Navy took an early lead in this game. So I think this is the ideal game. That could be a trap game for the Irish. It's ideal that Notre Dame would win a game like this in the fourth quarter, or even in overtime, and I think that could be the case. I think Navy plays Notre Dame tough, but I think the Irish get the win at the very end in the fourth quarter. And the Irish will stay unbeaten for another week, which is right now about survival mode. And finally, the game of the week, number 9 Florida versus number 7 Georgia. And I didn't know who to pick in this game. We get a top 10 matchup this week, your game of the week. This is, speaking of the college football playoff race, this is an elimination game. The loser of this game will have 2 losses and will ultimately be eliminated from the college football playoff. So I wasn't sure who to pick. Florida is surprisingly playing very well. They're flying under the radar right now. But are they an overrated team? And Georgia. It's not the same Georgia team as last year, but they're kind of staying in the mix kind of quietly with only 1 loss. So it's very tough for me to pick a winner here, but I think the difference, just like in the LSU game, is going to be Florida's defense forcing mistakes from Jake Fromm. I think that's going to be a huge key in this matchup. I feel like Florida's defense will be the difference in this ball game, as I like the Gators to pull off the upset 27-23. So those are my picks this week. Comment your picks down below. Also like, share, and subscribe. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day or evening whenever you're watching, and I will see you next time.